Welcome back to Page to Picture, the podcast where books come to life on screen and in conversation. I am your host, Kim.
And I'm Tiff, and today's Art Corner is heating up with Succubae, Queens of the Underworld, Book 1 by author Adrienne Steele, a bold and spicy entry into the world of sci-fi romantasy, which I love.
I know, it was, oh my, yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Adrienne Steele is quickly making a name for herself in the indie fantasy romance scene, known for her sharp wit, emotional depth, and unapologetically powerful female leads. Steele blends supernatural lore with romance trope readers love, then turns the heat all the way up. I mean, this book
literally all the way up.
And that is fine by me. In the summer weather, that is okay.
Yes. Yes. So Succubae is book 1 in her Queens of the Underworld series and introduces us to a high stakes world filled with demons, angels, vampires, and one woman at the center of it all, which, by the way, like, can I also be in the center of it all? I can never. So when I was reading, I couldn't pronounce her name, so I called her Eli. Ellie, Eli. Yeah, I gave her a nickname. Can you say her name for me just so that way I know?
It's Elisheba.
Elisheba. That's so pretty. So much better than what I was calling her. But she's not quite human anymore, and she's definitely not safe. But my gosh, this book was great.
Yes, with vivid world building, multiple POVs, and a wide choose romance that delivers on both the inks and the spice. Adrienne Steele debut is an explosive start to what promises to be an unforgettable series. Adrienne, please introduce yourself to our listeners. We are so excited to have you here and so excited to talk to you about your books.
Thank you. My name is actually not Adrienne Steele, but that's what we're going with for my writing.
Okay, great.
I like many indie authors who have, a regular day job and everything, I use a pseudonym. My pseudonym is actually based on my grandmother, Adrienne, who in the 50s and 60s was wilding out, and she's a huge role model for me. And so I took her first name for my pseudonym to, kind of honor the history that she had in our family as really kind of being, an original, I'll say. So I've been writing since, oh my gosh, 2017 really, but geez, getting your first book out there is just really hard when you have like a job and marriage and a kid and pets,
life,
when
you have life.
So it is really difficult, and so many people, so many like ladies really want to get their story out there, but it is really a huge investment of time. And when you start getting to, the point where you're ready to publish, it can start getting expensive depending on what route you want to take. So there are definitely roadblocks there. I ended up not getting my first book published until 2021. And it is a little bit of a mess. But, it's my first book and I love the story, and it's my previous series. And I am actually in the middle of rewriting it because I feel like I've grown so much as an author, even in just these 4 years, with being able to, kind of tell the story that I have in my head. But Succubae was one of those things that just really kind of started dragging my attention away from the story that I love. And I was 4 books into my previous series, Neceru of Earth series, which is a little bit more sci-fi, ancient alien type thing. And I just really got sidetracked by Succubae. And I did a thing that I really hate it when authors do when I'm doing a series, is I stopped writing the series that I was working on and I started writing this series. And I'm like, I do both at the same time. And my job, and my marriage, and my kids, and my pets.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But, Liz's story and the story of the other women and everything that are in this series just really, really interested me because I wanted to have something that was a little bit contemporary, and then really kind of playing around with Not necessarily like mythology retellings and things like that, but just
Mhm.
taking that kind of foundational mythology that's there for, Greek mythology, for Christian mythology, which, and I don't
Mhm.
want to offend anybody, but I'm saying, I'm using, the term Lucifer, and I'm using,
Yes.
a bunch of different demon names and angel names that come from Christianity. And I just really kind of wanted to put a little bit of a twist on it, which honestly does kind of have a little bit of an Ancient Aliens feel to it, just because I'm so fascinated by that, like that phenomenon. I mean, I wish that my hair was like that, but it's a
Yeah.
guy, it's not, my hair doesn't do that. But I think that the Ancient Aliens idea is absolutely fascinating. So I really just
Mhm.
mixed that in, and then I took a bunch of different, mythologies, from Greek mythologies, from having a Christian foundation and stuff, and a Christian background like I have, and just kind of like smashed all of that stuff together with a lot more of the current interpretation of, well, monster romance, demons,
Mhm.
aliens, angels, succubus, and stuff like that. And I really wanted to just take all of those things and really kind of play with them. And I feel like with Succubae, it's very distinct. It's very distinct kind of what I'm doing. It's very
Yes.
noticeable.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hold on, because you went through like I'm like what? I'm like, hold on, let me go through my questions because I feel like you just went boom, 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 like you answered 3 of
Yeah,
our
you
questions
answered
like
like
right
so
off
many of
the
our questions, and I said no, but keep going because I'm
bat.
eating it up. Like
Me
I,
too. I'm like just listening. I'm like, oh my god, that's so crazy. Like that is crazy. So wait, you're rewriting this series?
I am doing a rewrite, and I'm not doing a whole on rewrite, but what I found was that in my writing, and honestly in my life, like who I am as a person,
Mm-hmm.
I I'm very pragmatic. I'm very, get to the point, get to the
Mm-hmm.
action, make the decision and then move forward. And that's great in my career, and that's great in my day job that, pays the bills and does all the things. It's fantastic that that is, a part of my personality. And it's not as great in my writing, because what I found is that I know the story so well, and
Mm-hmm.
I know the characters so well, that when I portrayed them, especially in my first books, Becoming and Sabine, I really skipped over some of the emotional aspects that my characters were going through. And I did not portray that, I feel, I did not portray that well enough for my readers, partly because I was a new writer.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot in my life. I'll skip over my emotions. Hey, let's get to the action. Let's do the thing. I can feel about this later, and
Mhm.
and so and so and so that's the books are, and they are. That's a roller coaster. You're going, you're going, you're going. Things are happening.
Yeah.
Things are moving, but so much of the crux of the story is, the emotional growth of, of the characters. And when I'm not showing that in the moment, then the reader misses out on it.
Mm-hmm.
So things that I know in my head, because that's where the story is and that's what these characters are doing, isn't portrayed as well as what I really wanted it to be. And so I have a really wonderful beta reader helping me, and my sisters are actually also my beta readers, and they help me a lot. And
I
what
love
I
that.
found is, you know, not all
I love that.
not all of my sisters, but most of my sisters.
Yeah.
And so I'm going in and I'm rewriting it in order to make sure that I expound on the roller coaster that the characters are feeling inside as they go through the
Mm-hmm.
roller coaster of what's happening in their life external. So that's really one of the things that I wanted to do. And then the lore for my initial series is not as easily accessible as the lore is for the Succubae series, because so many people already have that foundation of demons and aliens and
Yes.
angels and understanding where these things are coming from. And, you know, if you're reading paranormal romance, if you're reading sci-fi romance, those things are going to be very easy for you to, you know, kind of understand and kind of slip into without a lot of backstory, because there's a lot of foundational understanding for the readers there.
Mm-hmm.
For my Nasera of Earth series, it's not really that way. So I really needed to go in and kind of explain the lore earlier. And in my mind, I was like, no, I'll drop little hints and then they'll figure it out. But you know, sometimes you can be too complicated. And in my
She's
life,
like, what was I
sometimes
doing?
that's who I am.
You're like, I'll drop little hints, but only I'll know.
Yeah. So
You're like, only the good ones will notice.
yes. So I'm like, okay, I need to fix that. You know, I want readers to enjoy this story as much as I enjoy these characters. So I really am gonna go in and I'm gonna do that. And you know, I've got, like I said, my beta reader. She actually is in Canada, and you know, so we, you know, connect online, and we've had some, you know, calls and stuff like that. And she's fantastic for being like, hey, you just blew past this, and you really should identify a little bit more of what's going on here. And that's the feedback that I'm, you know, is excellent. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. You're like, that's what I need. I need like real honesty. Like, tell me as a reader what I'm missing, what you want, what I need to do to get my whole story out there. And that intrigues the reader. I love that. True honesty.
That's what we love our beta readers for. Because they'll tell us.
Yes,
they will tell
me.
Yeah.
What do I need to fix?
Yeah.
Like, where you're like,
give
what?
me your unfiltered opinion and tell me what is missing and what I should not even have in there. Because I get it. My sister reads. She's my beta reader. Kim.
Yeah.
So I have Kim as my beta reader, and I have my best friend as my beta reader. And Kim will be like, "This is great. I love this." And then my best friend will be like, this needs to have more. I don't know why this person is here. And I'm like, you know what? You're so right. Kim, please. Or it'll be like flipped, where Kim will be like, what's this person's deal? Why are they here? And then my best friend will be like, I love everything about this. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me add more to make it better for you. So that's what we love beta readers for.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting that feedback is so key. Like, I didn't have I had my sister's beta reading for the Nasera of Earth and everything, but I also made the mistake of explaining to them the story. So then they knew.
Oh, yeah. So they already had it in their heads. They were like, I know what's going on.
You know, I was just so excited. And then now I'm like, nah, I'm not going to tell you the story. You tell me what you think the story is so I can make sure I'm going down the right path.
Yes, I understand that, because if I'm writing something, or if I give Kim something to read, I'm like, I want to tell you everything about this, but I know I shouldn't, but I want to really bad. And that's like a curse with being a writer, because we are the only ones that know the story and we want to talk about it so bad, but we can't until it's done. And when other people read it, and it's like,
and then as soon as somebody shows interest, you're like, okay, so what's gonna happen?
Yeah, you're like, okay, so this is
you can't do that.
It's just a whole thing.
It's a learning curve.
Yes, it 100% it is.
Or like people who I've seen interviews with other authors, or we've talked to other authors where they're like, oh, when we have a story, and then their, you know, readers come back and they're like, well, is this the reason? Or like, is this what's going to happen next? And the author's like, if you think so, I can't really say anything, but
like, maybe.
If that's what you think is going to happen, sure, let that be your perspective.
And I mean, honestly, sometimes you get so much feedback, you're like, that could happen. Should I make that happen?
You're like, observation there.
You're like, hold on, I have to do a like, hold on, let me change the story, because I actually like your guys' version.
On having this MMF, but maybe.
Yeah, you're like, tell me more about your theory.
Oh my gosh, what a deep Let me take notes.
I love it. It's so good. Okay, so you juggle such a unique mix of sci-fi, mythology, and steamy paranormal romance, which who doesn't love? How did you go about building this world? It's because it's both immersive and it is deeply emotional. So the world that you built is like so layered, and I'm so intrigued. So how did you come about with building this whole world that you've made?
So for the Succubae series, you're writing romance and everything, and everybody is always like, romance is just sex. Not that there's not a lot of sex in my novels. I mean, straight up, there is. There is.
I was like, wait, what?
I mean, it's like, that's a thing, that's a thing that I love about this genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But romance has so much more depth than a lot of people really think. I mean, you can get books that don't have depth, but but there's a lot of books out there that really show, a lot of depth, and they handle like some really difficult topics sometimes. So a lot of the time for me, what I'm looking at is not just this really cool story, not just this really like cool why choose and stuff like that, but I kind of want to go with overall themes. And a couple of the themes that I really wanted to touch on with Succubae was, there's so much politically now with women's rights and, trans rights and all of these, and minorities. I mean, there's so many things happening in the US right now that are really not where so many people want to be. It seems like we're moving in the wrong direction. It seems like what we're doing is not right. It doesn't even seem like it. It is. It's just straight up. It's wrong.
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking about the Succubae series, I wanted to kind of explore some of those aspects of having power and not having power in relationships. And then, like you said, a lot of my books, like the vast majority of my books, literally all of them that I've written so far, although in theory some of them later won't have this, have really strong female main characters. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of explore the power structure of, being a succubus, of being an incubus, and having these types of transformations happen to somebody who, maybe isn't ready for that. And one of the themes for Liz's story, is that she's not necessarily a dominant female. She's not necessarily, the power play woman. She's not a boss lady. She turns into a boss lady. And I think that a lot of the times there's this miscalculation by people that if you're a boss lady, that means that you're assertive, that means that you're strong, that means that you're, this, that, and the other thing. But the fact of the matter is that when you're doing something, when you're putting together a team, you need multiple personalities within that team, and your leader can be a leader in several different ways. I am assertive, I am directive, I am, these different things, but I also am very nurturing. I'm also very easy for people to talk to, and things like that at my job where I'm a director. And so I'm not like a cold directing, type of boss. You don't have to be that way. And I think that a lot of people really kind of get into this, this headspace where, a leader is one certain thing. No, Liz is a leader. She's leading. She's taking on a responsibility that is huge. And it was really kind of thrust upon her. And then she also had this huge change to her character, to where she's fundamentally a, you know, a nurturing type person. She's strong. She has opinions, obviously, and you can be strong and you can have opinions, but you can also not be the alpha, or, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But she's dropped into being the alpha because she's now a succubus. So she is the apex predator, and she has to deal with the impulses that come with that, in her character and in her interactions with other people and stuff like that. So things that she's not necessarily comfortable with doing, she is now doing. And, and I really wanted to explore that. And like, I've got further characters in this series who are incubi, and they are assertive characters. And now they've got dropped into their characters where they have this urge to give, and they have this urge. And I mean, even in book 2, it kind of explore that a little bit, with Alex, because he's he's got this innate urge now to be an incubi, but that's not his fundamental character. And I really wanted to explore that, because I feel like so much pressure comes culturally to make people be who they are not necessarily naturally.
Yeah.
Culturally, you're looking, people expect you to be a certain way. People want you to be this. They want you to be that. You're a woman, so you're this. You're a man, so you're that. This, that, and the other thing. And instead of like kind of portraying that externally, I dropped it internally into these characters, to where it's like, okay, well, now this is who you are. I don't even know if I'm being clear about that, but
No,
you are. You are.
100%.
that's what I was trying to go for. And I really wanted to show that struggle of, this is who I am versus this is who I'm being pushed to be. And how do
Yeah.
you merge those two things together so that you are comfortable with who you are, and then, move forward into a relationship that is, because then you also have that internal struggle, but then you have the external struggle of, and I mean, Liz, all these men, all these freaking men, and they all have different things and different stuff, and they have different personalities. And then you're trying to build a long-term relationship with respect and with love, and and I wanted to reflect a relationship that did that. So that was an incredibly long and drawn out explanation of where I was going with the story.
It was.
She's like, it's in my brain, and I have to let people know, like, this is what I'm thinking. Like,
but I loved it because it just shows like that this world that you created, these characters that you've made, and the story that you have them in, it's very like
personal.
it's very humane in a sense, which is funny to say about a sci-fi mythology paranormal romance, right? But it is very humane, and you don't really get that in a lot of books late nowadays. I feel like you don't get a lot of books where it talks about real stuff, like 80% of the time when I pick up a romance, just in general romance, it's always like the girl has a problem, and the guy's like perfect from head to toe, and there's nothing wrong with him, or vice versa. But I love it when it's like all the characters have their internal struggles, but then also that external element comes into it, and it just affects everyone, and it's just very humane, and I love it.
Yeah, there's
Your
like an
explanation
evolution.
was perfect.
Yeah. No, seriously. The book spans multiple POVs and timelines. The timelines, especially. I mean, I have to talk about, I think it's how is it perceived? The heaven.
Yeah.
Is that how it is? Yes. I was like, whoa, I've never really read like any sci-fi book. So when I read that, I was like, this is interesting, and I'm totally for it. Cause like as a movie lover, I could totally picture that scenes in like a movie, like the way it's like laid out. I totally love those chapters. But the timelines and the multiple POVs, was that always part of your vision, or did that evolve as you got deeper into Liz's like transformation and just like as your storytelling? Like, how do you decide like how your storytelling is? Do you like have a plan where you write it all out? Are you a pantser where you're just like, I'm just gonna go with the flow?
Oh,
like,
definitely not.
She's like, I don't know how people do that. I can't do that.
Gosh, I couldn't. I wouldn't even try. It would be all over the place. It would be such a hot mess.
She's like, you actually have to take each chapter and lay it out and determine the right flow that goes with the book.
So,
with a story.
Not gonna lie, yes, I do like map out. So what I try to do is I map out the series. Kind of map out the series, because the series has a story arc that it goes through, and then each book has a part of that story arc within it, and those books contain the character's arc to where they're starting, and by the end of it they're hitched. Not necessarily married, but definitely committed
together.
Yeah. Yes. So, because it's romance, that's the point. The point of each one of those books is the connection between the characters getting developed. But over the course of the series, there is an overarching arc where everybody has their part to play. So what I do is I really map out the series, figure out who's with who's what, and then I have to do it like honestly with my books. I end up having to do like a really hardcore timeline. Not gonna lie, I am not gonna lie, I suck at time zones. Like, they're so hard. They're so hard for me. I feel like I'm not the only one, but yeah. And for the Nacero of Earth series, my books overlap the same timeline, but they're all in separate time zones. Like in the third book, they're bouncing around from Cuba to Miami to Africa to back. And then in the fourth book, they're in Turkey, they're in Kazakhstan, they're all over the place. And I'm like in time zone hell, mapping out the series. And I have dug the same hole for myself in the Succubae series.
Oh no.
You're like, why did I do this to myself?
It's so horrible. I'm like, why do I do this? So now I have not only like a series timeline, but each book has its own timeline, because then when they overlap and the characters interact and there's certain scenes that I want to have be in that character's books, I have to make a timeline so I can make sure that everything makes sense. Because readers notice, and I owe it to them
Yes.
to make sense. It needs to make sense. So I do that, and then as the books go, the book timeline kind of like comes together. But the series overall timeline really kind of is already mapped out. And like the beats for the timeline for the series are kind of mapped out. And then what I do is I go in and I develop the story for the character. Originally, Succubae was going to start where that middle part is, where we jump to the current time.
Oh.
And I
With
started
no like history of like how
nothing. I had not planned on it. It was all going to be like super
Interesting.
cool flashbacks. This is me being complicated. Super cool flashbacks. And I was like, you know what?
You're like, this is I'm getting lost in my flashbacks. You're like, what am I doing?
I'm like,
Let
I
me
need to
stop right
really
here.
just kind of like, and you know what? I just need to go ahead and tell, because then I was like, no, I can make a prequel. And I was like, no. Do it now. Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I had it all mapped out to where it started, and it was only going to be one book. And then
Oh.
like it didn't work that way. So
Yeah.
I went in
like,
and
it
I
actually wasn't
and I
like
wrote
that.
the entire initial part of the series to where you really could kind of see where Liz and Luce's relationship kind of started, where Liz started her arc of figuring out what the hell had happened to her and what she was doing.
Yes.
And I feel like that really, really led to the flow of the stories. And I know that there's a huge jump in time. And I've heard from some of my readers that, oh, that really threw me off. But I didn't want to go through like literally thousands of years with her.
Yeah.
Because she was just kind of hanging out.
Mhm.
And she was really just and I think it's one of those things that I really like to play with a lot too, is I think my take on being immortal is that as time passes, I think you just don't really notice.
Yeah.
I think that you would stop noticing that time is passing. You'd be like, oh shit, it's been 100 years. Hold on, I need to move, or something like that. Because I think that, when you kind of get into, even as a human, when you kind of get into a groove, you don't notice time passing. I mean, I am mid 40s, almost late 40s, middle late 40s, almost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. What happened? How did
Yeah.
that happen?
No, seriously. It's like when you're watching your kids, both Tiff and I are moms, it's like watching your kids grow up. You're like, you were just starting kindergarten. What do you mean you're going to be like in middle school? Like, where does time go? Like, I completely understand. It didn't throw me off. For me, I just kept flowing. Like, for me personally, a lot of info dumping, and like sometimes I want to just get into it, right? Like, let's get into, okay, we've got the background story. Now let's like get into like what's happening now with this character. So like it wasn't a jar for me. I loved it. I was like, perfect, like this is great. We got like the background, and now here is where she's at. For people who were like thrown off by it, fill in the gaps yourself. You can have fun, like whatever you think she was doing during that time.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I was like, no, this is good. Like I didn't stop and question it. I wasn't like, what is happening? I just kept reading it, and I was like, yes, we're in it. Let's go. This is what I wanted. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear that.
She's like, I'm glad I wasn't going crazy. Like, does this
She
make
goes, okay,
sense?
good.
But I mean, and I really do understand the readers that are like, oh, that was a huge jump, because it is. It's a huge amount of time. But that kind of is what what I was getting at as well, is like, okay, all of this stuff happened, and then she was just basically in limbo, and
Yes.
everybody was just basically in limbo. The angels were sleeping. Like, there's a
Yes.
lot of limbo happening, and but what it did allow is for Liz to be by herself in order to mature. And I think
Mhm.
that can be very difficult for women to really, if you're in a relationship too young, I think that it can be very difficult for a woman to mature for herself, like
Yes.
herself, and understand, who
Mhm.
am I? What am I doing when you're in
Yes.
a relationship? Because women are naturally givers. You know what? I'm not going to say that. Women are not naturally givers. But when you're in a relationship, it is incumbent on you culturally to give.
Yes.
And so that's kind of
Yes.
where you're going. And I'm not going to like pigeonhole women and be like, no, women are all naturally nourishing. No, no. No, we're not. We're regular people, we're
Yeah.
not
That is
naturally,
true.
nurturing and all of this other stuff. These are things that are kind of imposed culturally.
Yep.
But they are imposed culturally. And so when you're in a relationship really young, it can be really hard for you to know who you are. And I felt like that's where Liz and Luce's relationship started, was her just having this relationship and it becoming so much of who she was and how she saw things. And then she was
Yes.
also so sheltered that it was just like,
Mhm.
it's just hard to grow that way. And so I wanted there to be a gap. They were not together, and there was a gap to where she could figure out herself. She could come to terms with who she was, what she had changed into. She could decide what she wanted to do, where she wanted to go, and that was key for her to be able to be the strong woman that she is. And I am not necessarily advocating that women that got married young leave your husband. I am not saying that. But I am
Yeah.
saying that it is really important for women to give themselves time and to take the time to understand who they are as a person, even outside of, your marriage, and outside of your role as a mother, as a wife, as,
100%.
all of these different
Mhm.
things. And that is what makes a woman, person, is to have that foundation of, this is who I am. And so a lot of my characters come off as really strong and assertive women, because it's one of the things that I want to give them, is to either have that storyline where they learn who I am, or they are one of those women that has taken the time to figure out, this is who I am outside of a relationship. In a relationship, these are the fundamental qualities of myself as a person.
Mhm.
And I wanted to really make sure that I included that.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Beautifully well said. I mean,
I agree.
y-
So, for our listeners who haven't read it yet, how would you describe Succubae Book 1? For those who haven't read it, those who knew nothing about it, how would you describe it to them?
I would say that Succubae Book 1 is, an introduction into a new world. It is a new take on, if you want to call it monster romance, or if you want to call it, vampire or demon romance. It's all of those things, but it's also alien romance. And I think it's kind of a new entry. And it's really my take on things, which is probably a little odd. And the story is about a woman who's been transformed, who has to come to terms with that transformation. And, it's her journey towards coming to terms with that and remaining who she is throughout it, and determining who she is throughout her story, while also um, getting
because
into a
naturally, women
relationship with
has
a
this plus
multitude of men.
also. Mhm.
Mhm.
And so she's got a multitude of men who she's moving into a relationship with, and this is about her story as a woman who was struggling, has internalized some of her struggle, and who is moving into and developing a relationship with four really very different, I hope, men. Hopefully I've conveyed that they are all really different. Um, And it's the overall theme is just that, okay, now things are changing and things are coming to a head in her world. And you know, it really kind of kicks off the series. It kicks off the world building, but it doesn't really lay everything flat. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background, quite frankly, that you guys don't know about. That's all in my PowerPoint outline of the series.
She's like, I have a lot to say.
and that's what these two books are, Succubae and then Succubae Queen. And then I do have a novella coming out, which I cannot remember what I decided on the title. I think
She's like, I don't want to say
of the Succubae Queen, or it might be Crowning the Succubae Queen. I can't remember
I
which of the
love
titles
that.
I've done. I already have the cover made. It's amazing. And I actually already have about 20,000 words written. It's just going to be a short novella that kind of rounds out Liz's story and kicks off.
Yes, I love a
rest of the
novella.
series.
I love a novella.
I was just about to say, Kim loves a novella. She's like
Give
constantly
me like
asking for
100
novellas.
novellas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like that.
and I'll read them. I love
She
them.
wants the series for sure, but she wants the novellas with it, like just as a little bow on top. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm like, every book should have a novella. That's how
Novellas
I
are an
feel.
excellent way to like round out the rest of your character,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I have definitely embraced the idea of the novella in the series.
Yay! Oh, I'm so excited.
I
I
love
do love it.
that.
I do love a novella because it's like, it's what you want to say, like you said, to round off the story without adding it to your actual book series and
Mhm.
adding more that you feel is like, this is probably unnecessary at this moment. But you're like, I can't just leave it as is. And instead of
Mhm.
writing like a whole nother big ass series, we're just going to write a little novella just to show you like, this is what's happened with your characters.
Yeah. So that is coming out, and it does feature Liz, and it actually features a lot of other characters in the series and kind of gives you a little bit of an introduction to the series proper of what's happening. And it has some Easter eggs in it that'll come up in later books and everything where you're like, wait a minute, I remember that.
I love that
which is
too.
something that I love.
Me too.
I also love that.
I love it because when I read it and there's Easter eggs, I feel like, I know I'm not, but I feel like I'm the only one. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
You're like, I got that.
I
You're
got that.
like,
Yeah,
I got
right.
that.
I know.
I don't think anybody else did, but I knew. Like, it makes you feel special.
You know, but I mean, it is though. It is because I think Easter eggs are a treat that authors leave in for, you know, readers who have really embraced their stories. You know, if you really embrace my stories and stuff like that, you're going to see these things. You're going to be like, wait a minute, I know what she's doing here. I see this and I'm going to flag this because something else is going to happen. And if you read my books, you're going to more and more, I think, be able to like see those things. And so that is exactly what they are. They're for those people that are really like immersed in the world, who really enjoy, you know, the books and the reading and stuff like that. So
Yes.
I want to put them in there because it's kind of like an understanding between me and the readers, like, oh, this is like, this is a thing. And then, you know, and they're like, oh, it is a thing. And it's like, yeah, it is.
They're like, let me
I
whip
love
out my highlighter and my like sticky notes because I know this is going to be, I love that. I love like highlighting. And I'm just like, yes, this is it.
I know Kim's like all in there with her highlighting, and then I'm with my little tabbies, and we're just like, did you catch it?
Yeah, we love that.
I love it.
Okay, so let's talk about Liz. So she starts off human, but after the arrival of the heavenly citadel, she transforms into something more. And you've mentioned it, you know, prior conversation, but like, what was it like writing her evolution in this series? Like, what was that like for you?
It was, at times it was really kind of difficult because, you know, and I'm not really necessarily the type of person to put myself down. I think when you say things about yourself, you know, you're really kind of putting it out there. So I will generally not put myself down. But I have identified, you know, that writing the emotions and writing and kind of conveying those, you know, deeper feelings from my characters and everything is something that I want to work on. And I feel like I grew a lot writing Succubae because I feel like this is one of the best books that I've written, kind of getting into where the character is coming from. I hate to be wordy about it because it can be really annoying when you read a book and the character is just like, oh, this is a thing. Oh, this is a thing. Oh, this okay, we get it. You know, and that's me. And that's me. So I don't want my characters to do that. And in my writing, sometimes then that makes me avoid having to say, oh, this is a thing. But it's a good thing to do that. It's a good practice to have at least a couple of those instances where your reader can really understand kind of where the character is coming from and how they're taking and their perception of certain events. And then another thing was in this series and in my previous one, there's a lot of unreliable narrative. Liz is clear. She's like, I don't know about these things. She's really been sheltered. And so she's saying things and she's like, I think this is how it is. But she's not necessarily a reliable narrator for things that are happening in the underworld, things that are happening with incubi. She is separated from all of that. So she's thinking things are happening. She thinks things work a certain way. She's not necessarily correct. And so moving into this book with her developing herself and having this thing that's happened to her that's not happened to anybody else. And she's like, I have no idea. And Luce is like, I don't know either. This is weird. Then at the same time, she's really so sheltered because of everything that's happening that she's also an unreliable narrator. So part of the story that was really difficult for me was kind of making sure that I conveyed all of those different things. Liz is growing. She's got to show her emotions. She's not necessarily reliable, and stuff is happening. And then I also wanted to show the series kind of foundation. And I'm using an unreliable narrator in some aspects to do it. So that was all a little bit of a challenge. Maybe I was successful at it, but sometimes I'm like, okay, let's, so I really, really went hard with my beta team for this book, for both of these books, and really kind of went hard with trying to make sure that what I was writing was conveying what I meant for it to say. So I don't know if that's what you got from the book, but that's what I was trying to say.
No.
She said, this is what I was trying to say. Whatever you guys got, sorry.
Probably also great.
She'd be like, if Tiff and I were like, actually, that's not at all what we thought.
That
She's like,
not what I thought at all. She's like,
No.
excuse me? I want to talk about the unforgettable love interests. Okay, so we have Lucifer, Xander, the senator vampire, and the soft-hearted incubus. How did you approach balancing their dynamics while keeping the Why Choose Romance fresh and unique?
I really kind of wanted to make sure that I had a mix of personalities.
Yeah.
And that you did. And
Yes.
That you did.
Yes, you did.
I really, I did. I didn't want them all to be necessarily like alphas.
Yeah.
I wanted them, and I'm hesitant to even use the word alpha nowadays with the, podcast and everything being the way that it is. I wanted their personalities to really kind of run the spectrum of how aggressive they were, how dominant they were, how playful they were and things like that. I really wanted to, kind of have the interactions that Liz has with each one of the guys to be very unique and different. And
Yes.
and so really they're very at different ends of those spectrums. Xander is playful, he's fun. A lot of my beta readers were like, wait a minute, I don't know about this guy. Where's he coming from? Is he dangerous?
Yeah.
Like that. But Xander is an angel. He is a cyborg. He's like, this is who I am. And he's so comfortable with himself and his place in the world, which is really kind of apexy. He's like, oh, cool. There's very little things that I have to worry about. And so that's the energy that he's bringing, which makes him, his level of comfort with himself and his confidence in himself makes him such a safe space for Liz to be playful, for Liz to be laughing and and having fun during sex and during their interactions. And that's a relationship I think that every woman can really get behind, because you want to have that ease with the person that you're with. And she doesn't necessarily have that ease with Lucifer. You know, they have a background, they have a history.
Yeah.
Is nurturing on his part, and it is protective, and you know, and initially it is very possessive. And you know, I really wanted to kind of show his growth to where he becomes accepting of, you know, of this relationship that she's got with the other men, and understanding that it's kind of a thing that needs to happen, you know. And I think that that's always kind of the struggle with why choose is, what is the very legitimate reason why these men have all agreed to share? And I think that that really has to be a foundational element when you have a why choose, because for me as a reader, I'm like, okay, but this doesn't make sense. You know, if you've got 4 alphas, that doesn't make any sense sometimes,
Yeah.
unless you have that innate foundational reason why there's a why choose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was
I love that.
one of those things.
No, I
Yeah.
love it. I mean, I love one. You have your one MMC, but I mean, to have multiple, I mean, I'm always down for a book that has
She said,
multiple.
I'm
Don't
always
even,
down for
I will
that.
never turn on a book that has multiple men. Like, please, no. I will
Yeah.
always read it.
I know. You know, honestly, one of the tropes that I would always avoid is, you know, a love triangle. I'm like, why? Why a triangle? Why not a circle? Like,
Yeah,
everybody
just make
together. Everybody
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
An
Exactly.
octagon, something.
Yeah.
An octagon is crazy. I love it though. I think
mean-
what makes a why choose such a good, like, like to make a good why choose, it has to be like all of the people have to have like different personalities, and what makes it good is when they come together and it's like the perfect like dynamic.
Mhm.
It's so good. And listen,
Yeah.
okay, so the reason, because my background, I changed my background. You can't see it now because my camera hates me, but I choose my background specifically for when we do like to match with what we're talking about, and I chose Oscar Isaac and Pedro Pascal because
why choose?
two completely different guys, but like I'm like a why choose. Hello.
Yeah, like
hello. Like you have the one that's like really like kind and like he's like very like, you know, silly and loving, and then you have like the broody kind of like, you know, touch her
I
and you die
love
kind of
it.
vibe. And I'm like,
Yes.
and I'm like, hello, why choose between the two? Come on now.
yeah, I know, right? The real question should be when, not why.
Exactly.
not which.
It should
It's
be
when.
when.
What?
Yeah.
That is my favorite thing I've ever heard.
It's
so true.
good. It's so true, because it's like, why do I have to choose between the two? Come on.
It's when will I?
When is this
Mhm,
happening? That's
mhm.
the real question here.
I love that so much. Okay, so we have to ask, what was your favorite scene to write in book 1?
I think my favorite scene in book 1, you know, I have a lot of them.
And that's okay. She's like everything from page
So
1
let me just
to
walk through the whole book. No,
Yeah.
hold
She's
on.
like, I
Let me
have
grab my ego and talk about this.
each chapter. I have a scene.
Let me put my ego on like a backpack, and then I can take you on this journey. No. Okay. So my favorite with Luce is actually the elevator scene.
Yes, I was just gonna say
Yes.
it better be the elevator scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was your
the
favorite
elevator
scene to write, and
in
why
Elf
is it the elevator scene?
I think my favorite with him and Liz, and that's really kind of a pivotal scene. So I feel like it's kind of hot too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a pivotal scene in their relationship.
You can't see me. I'm
So
not in my
my
head.
beta readers were like,
Yeah.
"You have a lot of elevator scenes in this book," and I was like, "Do I?" And then I read it, and I was like, "Okay, so there are several." The elevator scene that I'm talking about is where she and Luce are going to the Phoenix's house,
Oh, yeah.
penthouse. And I feel like that's a really pivotal scene. It's sexy, but it's also very emotional. And
Mhm.
I really worked on that scene a lot because I wanted to show the divide to where you can have this level of physical intimacy while you start having this emotional divide. And I really wanted to show that in that scene. And I think that I did it well. I think that it does set up what happens after that really well, personally.
Yes. Yeah. She's like, I think I wrote it very
Maybe.
well.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, tell me now if it doesn't, because
No.
She's
She's like, I'm gonna rewrite. So tell me now if I need to
please
like
let me
really.
know.
no.
And then, the next scene that I really liked was when Xander and Liz first meet outside in the parking lot. One, because I think motorcycle gear is hot. My husband rides a motorcycle.
Agreed.
100%.
Like,
I have an
can't see our
obsession.
cameras.
like hands
You
down.
can't see our cameras, but Tiff and I are nodding our
I
heads.
have an
vigorously.
obsession. We don't talk about it, but I love to. So yes,
It's gonna show up in character art at some point. It will, because I was like, this thing is
I'm
gonna happen.
excited.
But I really liked it because I felt like that scene really was a great exposition of Xander's approach. Like his personality, his approach, where he was coming from, who he is, how he's going to be in this relationship, what he's bringing to the table and stuff like that. And I felt like that really laid out very clearly, what he was all about.
Yeah.
And, and then Liz's take on it, where she was like, oh, this is new, unexpected. And also, I am eating this up.
Yeah.
She's like, I love this.
Yes.
This is
this
new. I love it. Yes.
If this is on the menu, then I am eating here.
Yes. Leaving no crumbs, and I'm coming back for more. That's just how I'm gonna be a regular. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's talk about book 2 real quick. So book 2 just came out in May. So what can you share with us about that book?
Book 2 expounds on Liz's relationship. It really does go into more of the series arc and kind of set up the series arc and what's happening, who's a bad guy, what's going on. Sets up a couple other, which you may or may not know, sets up a couple of the other books in the series. Fraja's series next in the series. This book 2 does kind of give you hints on some of the other books that are going to be happening.
I love that.
I do too, because I'm super excited about it. Not gonna lie, already have some of those scenes written, which I shouldn't be working on because I need to focus.
She's like, I got a lot to do. Oh my God. She's like, but I can't help it. If it's in my head, I have to write it down. I'm sure
Literally.
that's like what I've heard is from authors. They're just like, if it's in my head, I have to write it down. And then I just have to be like, I know I need to insert this when I write my book. But yeah, there's like 100 ideas going off in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose it.
Yeah, and sometimes when it's a hard writing day and this is the scene that I'm writing, you know what? I'm just going to go with it because getting those words out there in the end is what I need to do. I need to write these books. I need to put these things together and some of these pivotal scenes that are in my head, getting them out and just going ahead and getting that word count for the day instead of maybe what I'm working on for my main whip. It's still a good thing because it's still progress. And I have to be nice to myself and say, no, this is still progress. Even if I hadn't planned for this progress to happen today, it's still good progress.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Right. Sitting there looking at it like, what? Oh no, I have to work on this. It's like nothing's happening. Like it's not happening, So that happens in the book. It really kind of like goes into a lot more of like the series arc and stuff like that of what's happening with the Succubae, what's going on. Luce is coming back. He's finding Liz because, they're getting taken and things like that. It's really kind of developing more into what's happening there. I think it also gives you a lot more background on Luce. I think it gives you a lot more background on Xander and the rest of the angels. I'm hoping that that's like what my readers are picking up. And, and it really does kind of round out the rest of Liz's harem. And I'm really excited with how it came out. I think that, it really kind of goes into a little bit more of what I was talking about previously, where, it kind of like showcases some of what Alex is doing. And there's a lot of background there that I don't necessarily get into with him and with Thomas and and things like that. But those things are going to come out later. They're going to be a little bit more prominent in the novella and in the rest of the series as it goes.
How many books are you planning to do for this series? She's like, oh, I've been waiting for somebody to ask me. I don't know.
Honestly, I've been dreading somebody to ask me because Liz's story was supposed to be one book. So I'm like, if all of my characters are going to do this, this is going to be like huge.
She's like, "This is gonna take over. It's gonna be a continuous.
Could you
Nothing."
just in the box? But so, like I said, Fraja's story is next.
Mhm.
After that is heroine number 3, and then I've got heroine number 4. I've got heroine number 5,
Oh my gosh.
7.
The more the merrier.
We love, I mean, Tiff especially loves a good hefty book series. Like,
Yes, I do.
It's hefty.
The more
athletic.
the merrier.
It is
Yeah,
hefty.
she's the more the merrier.
So if all of my characters manage to stay in their box, then what we're looking at is probably 9 books total. But they won't because they don't do that. So probably what I'm looking at is more like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
But, more than likely some of those are going to end up being kind of rounded out with novellas. So it'll probably be like 10 books and 2 or 3 novellas.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love
Keep the
it.
story going.
Yeah. Why not? Who else is going to write it?
Literally.
Well,
why not do it?
Yeah. I love when a series is long though, because it's like I invest so much time in the world and in the characters that like when it ends at like 4 books or even like 5 books, I get like kind of sad because I'm like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to
it's like,
leave
wait
this
a minute, I
world.
want more. Like I want to
Yeah,
know
like
more
there's
about
so
this.
much more that could be talked about. There's so much more to be
Yes.
done. But what do you mean that you stopped at 3 books? Like, stop.
Yes.
Give me more. That's what I want.
And she's like, I will give you plenty. Don't even
There's gonna be
worry.
And
so
I'll
many
give you
books.
novellas.
And the novellas on top.
It's
As
exciting.
it should. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
I do. I love that so much. Okay, so I want to get into some personal reflections here. So despite all the fantasy elements, Liz's journey is incredibly grounded, especially in how she navigates trauma, desire, and identity, especially. So what do you hope readers walk away with after reading her story?
I hope that readers walk away. I don't know. I mean, in my heart, I want to say like with a sense of joy, to embrace who they are, even,
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a why choose romance. I mean, there's a lot of sex,
Yeah.
but hopefully there's also a lot of emotion and there's a lot of growth, portrayed in the books, so, I want readers to have one, obviously always a sense of satisfaction when they're reading the books, that they're getting, what they were looking for, and so if somebody walks away from reading my book and they're happy, with having read it, or, I mean, it ends on a cliffhanger, but book 2 is already out. So, it's
it picks right back up. It literally picks right back up.
Great. But after reading book 1, I hope that they're walking away with immediately wanting to read book 2.
Yes.
But I also want them to have, the satisfaction of having read a good story, of, kind of coming back awake after, being immersed in this world. And, for me, I work hard. I think a lot of women do. We work hard, and it's, your job, your marriage, if you're married, your life, your friends, your kids, your pets, there's all these different things. And I hope that this is, an escape. Like an escape that you can get lost in, and that you can just really take your time and enjoy. And hopefully, you want to come back and revisit, especially as the rest of the series gets released. So that's really what I want the readers to walk away from, is basically having enjoyed taking a break from the real world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That is a huge takeaway, especially with the genre of fantasy elements, but even sometimes fantasy, like, because I'm a huge fantasy reader, I'll read books where it's heavy fantasy, but I don't get that sense of like I've escaped, for a little bit to just kind of enjoy myself and my time. But this, I think your story is exactly that, where it's like there's so much elements, but it flows well together to where it's like I have a lot going on in my life, but when I read it, I'm not like, I don't feel so stressed, and I don't feel so like worried about what life
like
is
in
throwing at
Liz's
me.
story.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm very invested in Liz's story, and
her
and, like,
men.
yeah, yes. And so like I think what you said, it tracks. So yeah.
Good.
It's great.
That's great to hear.
Yes.
What advice would you give other writers, especially those who want to write something in this type of genre, or if someone who's just starting out or is like starting late in the game? I mean, like, what is some advice that you could give to other writers?
I think the best advice, really the best advice that I could give anybody is you have to make writing a priority.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invest the time that it takes to write. You have to carve that time out of your very busy life. And if you're successful in doing that, then the second thing that I would say is you can write by the seat of your pants, but you really do need to understand, I think, I could not function this way. You really do need to understand where your story is going. Like, what do
Yeah.
you want your characters, and I mean, sometimes they're going to deviate, a lot of authors are like, yeah, my characters are just doing a thing. Not going to lie. I had a surprise orgy in Becoming. I did not know. I was like, what is happening here? What are you?
I could just see her like typing away, like, what is
You're like,
happening?
this is not the
And I'm
scene
like,
I set up.
What are you doing? Like, we have a story and you guys are just having sex. What are you doing?
You guys are just dilly-dallying, and I'm over here trying to keep the plot plotting, and you're like, well, I'm just going to keep going then, I guess.
I did.
Oh my God.
And it ended
Yeah.
up in the story.
it.
And I was just like, okay, this was not what this chapter was meant to do. But it was very on brand for the characters. And I was
Yeah.
like, it is, because it was very on brand, I felt, for them. And in that sense, I left it in because it did show a side of these characters where they're just like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Why are you guys just have no sense of timing? And that,
Time.
that's true. I mean, if you're an immortal, you have no sense of time. You have
Yeah.
like everything can wait. It can wait, and it's just like, well, now hold on.
They're like, we have time for an orgy. Let us be.
We can do
They're like,
this.
please.
We'll get to it later,
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, it made it into the book. And I was just like, all right, whatever. It's not what I planned, but whatever. And it was hot. And I was like, all right, we're just going to leave that in there.
Yeah, here.
You're like, I actually love this scene. Hold on.
You're like, you guys are onto something.
Yeah.
Let me continue what you're trying to say to me. Yeah.
Literally onto something.
What's the meme where she's like, no. And then she's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
that was me. I was like,
This is
well,
literally it. You're like,
we
no. Maybe actually.
But, you really do kind of have to have like your overall path laid out, the specific direction that you are trying to go in, and you can take different streets or you can get on the highway. You can do whatever you want to do in order to get there. But you really do kind of need to understand what your end game is going to look like. I could not write without really understanding, and I'm super organized. I have spreadsheets, like I have PowerPoint presentations. I'm super, super corporate America nerdy about my writing because this is how I function, like 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. So
yes,
it's super easy for me to incorporate those things into my world building and into my planning and organizing and stuff. So, I carve out my morning time. I get up at a stupid 4:30 in the morning, feed all of the animals and stuff like that we have. And then I'm sitting at my desk by like 5:30 and I write until 7:30, and it's only 2 hours a day, but it allows me time to get done what I need to do. And then on the weekends, I still get up at 4:30 and I write until like 11 or 12. So
oh my God.
if I didn't do that, there's no time that I would have been able to write. So carving out that time, it's just like going to the gym, which I don't do. If I wasn't writing, I would have time in the mornings.
Yeah.
She's like, I got to prioritize.
But you have to do that. And if you're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to do this here and there. It's real hard. It's real hard to get something written that's coherent and cohesive and stuff like that, unless you're really dedicated with, making it a priority.
Oh my God. Tiff, that's so relatable to you.
No, yes. You have to, I agree with all of those things, because time management is huge. You
It's
have to make
huge.
time to write. And then also outlining is so huge, because your characters will literally, as soon as you write out their life, like you're like, okay, this is who you are and this is how it is. Your character will be like, all right, but instead of that, let me just do this instead.
Let's have an orgy.
Like, yeah, like literally, it's
Seriously, an
crazy.
orgy.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like, to someone that doesn't read and to someone who doesn't write, when we say like our characters tell us what to do, it's like we sound crazy, but like it's true, because like you'll write out these scenes, like you'll be like, okay, this is the scene and this is what's gonna happen, and your character will be like, okay, cool, but instead of that, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay,
But what about an orgy?
yeah.
You're like,
and sometimes they don't even ask, they just do it, and you're like, all right, cool.
You're just watching at this point.
Yeah, that outline is so important, because when things like that happen, you have to have something to go back to catch you back on track, because
Yeah.
if not, then your story will just take a completely like left turn, and you're like, how did I end up here?
yeah.
With 8 more
Yeah.
people joining in on this festivities.
Yeah,
Oh my
and then you have, like,
goodness.
you've got a
Like, it's
character,
the
and you're like,
whole
who are
thing.
you? Where did you come
Yeah,
from?
honestly, that happens to me a lot, where I'll forget about, no, I won't forget about the outline, but I'll forget about a certain scene, and all of a sudden I have 2 new characters that just appear out of nowhere, and I'm like, why are you here? And and who invited you? Like, it's the whole thing. So yeah, outlining, I agree 100%, and time management, I agree.
So before we wrap up, we have a fun question game, kind of like a rapid fire this or that we always like to do with our authors.
Okay, ready.
The first 3 are more like information, but yes, the first one is, if Succubae was turned into a movie or TV series, who would you cast? And I just listed 3: Liz, Lucifer, and Xander. I was like, I just listed 3.
Okay,
Who would you cast?
So I am horrible about knowing like actors' names.
That's okay if you
like
Tim and I can like kind of figure it out. If you have like a description, we'll be like,
okay.
this is who
This
you're talking
person,
about.
yeah.
Okay, for Liz, oh god, I don't know. I think I would want like I wouldn't want like a young. Yeah, I'm just gonna describe who I would want. You guys maybe can
Okay.
listen.
Okay.
Like I really, and I'm like, I really don't watch a lot of TV. It's just like, oh, it's really horrible. My husband will like quote movies to me, and he's always super disappointed because I'm like, I don't know what that's from.
You're like, well, that's a cool thing to say.
So horrible. Okay, but for Liz, I would want to have, the red hair, but I would want the actress to be like probably early 30s, a little bit more serious looking, because I feel like Liz is kind of no nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, and this is my age showing, I would want like a Jodie Foster-esque actor.
Ooh, I love her
Yeah.
characteristics
But a little bit
in
like,
when she plays.
Right. Like I'm thinking like a Jodie Foster from Silence of the Lambs era.
Ooh,
Oh,
Red hair,
yeah.
right? So that's kind of who I would look at for Liz. And as you see how bad I am, like I know like actors and stuff like that, but they're like way, like I'm old. Ladies, I am old.
Stop. You don't look a day over 21.
I think for Xander, oh gosh, Ryan Gosling.
Ooh, Tim and I both like, ooh, I love it. She's like, okay, that works. Perfect. Cast
Okay,
him.
so top secret. My sister is here with me. We're in New Orleans to go to this book signing. And
Right.
she came down with me. So better at this than I am. So who would we say for Luz? Who's the guy that Hugh Jackman?
Oh,
Younger though.
Love
like
Hugh
the initial
Jackman.
what's the thing with the Wolverine? Hugh Jackman.
she's
God,
like,
but
we're
not with the
casting.
want hair. Like normal hair.
Yeah, normal hair. Oh my gosh.
What the hair?
I love it.
I think. Because Luz is big. He's like bulky.
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
big
so
guy.
large.
Yeah.
So what about
Oh,
Henry Cavill?
It is, Tiff.
I'm thinking Henry
Oh,
Cavill for
yeah.
Lucifer.
Henry Cavill. Yes, definitely.
I have
vibes.
Darker hair.
Witcher vibe. Yeah. Oh my. Anyway, so Lucifer for
She's
sure.
obsessed.
Henry
Henry
Cavill.
Cavill's
Love Henry Cavill.
Obsessed.
I mean, what's not to love?
You're so
Yeah.
right. And I
She's like,
think
"You're
Ryan Gosling would be good for Xander for sure. But for Liz, I don't know if you've seen the newer Jurassic Park movies, the redhead. I can't remember
Yes.
her name, but
Yes, she would be
when
really
you
good.
were
Yes.
when you were talking about
Isn't
that
Ron
and then you
Howard's
brought up
daughter?
Jodie Foster.
Is it Ron Howard's daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes.
So definitely Ron Howard's daughter.
Yes. So I was thinking, because that's who I thought when you were describing her just now. First image that came to my head, and I said, "Oh my god, she would be perfect." And then obviously Henry Cavill, because I can put Henry Cavill in anything. And yeah, Ryan Gosling. For
I'd
sure.
watch that. I'd watch that immediately.
100%. Anything with Henry Cavill, though. Like, come on.
She's heavily obsessed. If she
Heavily.
could have any episode, if she could bring up Henry Cavill. Every time we ask this question, she's always like, "Well, what about Henry Cavill?" And the author is like, "Yeah, that could actually work." And Tiff's like, "I got another one.
Yeah.
Check." Like,
I got
she's
another
obsessed.
one. I'm like Thanos collecting all of the stones at this point.
Collecting all the
just
Henry Cavills.
All the Henry Cavill stones.
I mean, it doesn't really matter who I think, because it sounds like you're imagining, several Henry Cavills in the
I am.
and
I
I
am.
support that.
Thank you so much, because it's a why choose, and I choose
It's
Henry
a when.
Cavill.
It's when, Tiff.
You're so right. It's a when choose.
It's a when choose.
She's just waiting. She's waiting for her moment.
So true. Okay, so the next question is, we want to know what your current read is, or what the last book that you read was.
So I like reading mafia romance.
Oh,
I know,
love a good
right? Which
mafia
is like
romance.
not at all what the genre that I'm writing now. I do want to write some mafia romance, but
Ooh.
form that has to wait until
She's like, I have to finish
Yeah.
this. I have to do this first.
focus.
Stay in my lane for a minute.
But there's an author. Oh, and I cannot remember her name. Naja? No, I cannot remember. But the series title is the Perfectly Imperfect series, and I really love all the books in it. And they're really good because they're kind of shorter mafia romance. They don't go like super heavy. Some mafia romance go really heavy into like the BDSM aspect, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I am a fan, but in today's political climate, I found that I'm not necessarily a fan, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's just kind of hard for me to kind of get lost in that stuff with things being the way that they are nowadays. But I really love her series because the books are so easy to read, and I can sit down and I enjoy the characters, and it's got emotional depth and everything, and it's got that connection and all, but it's not like this really heavy investment in thinking. And when I'm deep into writing and my job and everything else, I can't handle a lot of stress. Like I have never seen the end of the series Ozark because I was under a lot of stress when it was like out, and I'm like sitting here watching the show, and my heart is pounding.
She's like, I can't do this. I can't.
And I told my husband, I said, I can't do this right now. I'm already dealing with so much stress. I can't handle these people's stress too. Like Orange is the New Black. I watched the first season. Didn't watch any of the rest of them because I was like, I cannot watch this woman continue to make mistakes and call out.
Yes.
She's stressing me out, and I can't.
She stressed me out. It took me forever to finish that series alone because I was like, I need to watch the show on a good day. So I get what you're saying about that. She made a lot of it.
Yeah. So her books are wonderful for that because they have conflict, they have the arc, the series, and the story and stuff like that, and they have the emotion and everything, but they don't have a lot of angst and that when I'm stressed out, which is awesome.
I will say, looking at this book series, the cover
I was just gonna say, because I pulled it up and I said, oh my,
I am sold. Give me like all it is hands, tatted hands, and I'm like, I would love to read this book, please. This is like the cover alone gets me.
Big Rex, I really love them. Yes. Neva, that's her name. Neva Altaj. That's her name. Jay. And I can never remember her name. But no, and the series has like several.
Yeah.
And my favorite, the guy's name is Salvatore, and it is my favorite in the series. I think it's like 5 or 6 in. But I love it. I've definitely
Oh.
bought the book, bought the series, and but they're great. They're great to read. I get all of the feels, and I can like get that emotional payoff. And I'm not like just like cashing, emotional checks that my stressed out little heart and mind can't cash.
Yeah.
This is a series that I
Tim,
am
it's
gonna
gonna be like,
pick up
it says it
because
ends in like a 12-book series. I am for it.
Yeah, and
oh
and they're
my.
not super long. Like I could read like 2 of them in a day. I read fast, but I could
Yeah.
read 2 or
Yeah.
3 of them in a day if nobody bothers me.
Oh my gosh. Then that means that Kim could read all the entire series in a day.
Well, I don't know because I read pretty fast, but no, they
I'm
work.
gonna like
So does
seclude
Kim, though.
myself.
Kim, like me and Kim will start a book at the same exact time, and 2 days later she'll be like, "Did you finish it? Because I have so much to say." And I'm like, "I'm only on chapter 2. What are you on about?"
Usually, if I start a book, I finish it the first day because I'm like, nope, this is what I'm doing. My husband
Yeah,
will be
you're like
like, "Are we
invested.
eating today?" And I'll be like, "I don't know. Are we?"
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, "That depends on how this book ends." You're
No,
like, "I don't
seriously,
know."
if I start a book and I can get and it draws me in instantly, I will finish it in a day. I'm just like, no, I need to finish this because I can't wait. I have to know what happens.
Yeah.
But then I get so upset when I finish a book and then I have to wait for like part 2. And I'm just like, well, what did I do to myself? Because now I have to wait.
She also gets really upset when she finishes a book and she has to wait for everyone else to finish
Yes.
the book because me and Kim are in multiple book clubs and she'll always be the first to finish and she'll text the group chat or whatever and be like, "Please, are you guys done?" or like, "How far are you? I have things to say." And I'll be like, "I'm on chapter like 40 something." And she's like, "I don't know what that means. You need to tell me where they're at." And I'm like,
No, yeah. Right now, Tiff is like finishing up a book. We have a book club later today, and she's like, chapter 44. I was like, I don't know what that means because I don't pay attention to the chapters. I just
Yeah.
read through. Tell me what's happening. And she's like, okay, this is happening. I'm like, yes. I'm like, you're getting there. You're getting there. I'm just like, text me when you'll know when to text me.
yeah.
I'm
And I'm
like,
like,
spoil
Yeah, like
it.
I don't want to give it away, but I
Just
have already
text
read
me
the
when
entire
you know. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you said you're not a big TV movie person, but we are a podcast that does book to adaptation. So we love a good TV show and we love movies. Do you have an all-time favorite TV show and or movie?
So speaking of book to movie, and I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I think my favorite right now is Dune, the newest remake.
Oh,
Love it.
Yeah.
Love how they did it. I think that the casting was excellent.
Yes.
And I know that they're making a third. I read the series
Yeah.
back when I was in high school, and it's complicated and it gets real weird.
Yeah.
I'm in sci-fi
yeah.
man, so it does. It definitely gets a little weird.
Man, it's so
It's a genre.
it is.
It is.
It
But I really love the remakes. I thought that they did a spectacular job with the mythology of it and things like that. But my not book to movie kind of
Mhm.
go to, I love the Alien series. I love the Predator series.
Yes.
Those are
Love
some of
it.
my favorites. Definitely love those as well. I haven't seen the newest Predator that came out, but I am planning on watching it. And then I saw that the Alien series has a TV show, which I think my husband and I might be looking into as well.
Oh,
I think my
yeah.
husband was trying to like show me a trailer on that actually. Hold on. I'm going to
Mhm.
look real quick.
Yeah.
2025 FX. I think
Yes.
this is it. Yes.
I think the Alien Predator world is such an underrated like
Like nobody talks
world.
about it.
Yeah,
that
but
much
it's
anymore.
so good. And it's
Mhm.
like, why do you not talk about it? Like I liked those movies.
I think
when
they're
watched it. Now,
excellent.
see,
I think
listen,
they're
now I'm gonna
excellent.
go
Yeah,
watch
Sigourney
them.
Weaver, obsessed.
Yeah,
Now I'm
and
gonna go watch them again.
really though, when you start talking about aliens, Sigourney Weaver was just like absolutely rampaging in on the sci-fi genre, as a female
Yes.
main character with like real female main character energy. Like I am
Yes.
here, I am the main character, and I am going to handle this. I
Yeah.
love her
Yes.
character. I think that she's absolutely phenomenal, and I love what she did specifically for the genre of sci-fi in general, to have a woman be unapologetically the main character in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yep.
10 out of
Yes.
10. Highly recommend. Love it. Love her. Love it. And I think that she herself as an actress and for who she is, really just continued to carry the series and kind of carry that genre forward as,
Yeah.
as an outside of the movie representative.
Yeah, when you think of aliens, you automatically think of Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yep.
yeah, for
And
sure.
cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Tiff, it's your turn.
Okay. So this is the this is the part of the rapid fire
Okay.
section of this segment here. So the first one is touch her and die or forced proximity.
Touch her and die. Definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love
Agreed.
Touch Her and Die.
Touch her and die is my Henry Cavill.
Oh yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
On that note, yes. Okay, so Grumpy meets Sunshine or enemies to lovers?
I think enemies to lovers.
Yes,
But
I
real
love a good enemy.
Real enemies. Not like, oh my God, I don't like the color of your backpack. Like real enemies to
Yeah,
lovers.
like I want them to try and kill each other.
Yeah.
And then they don't kill each other, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the vibes I'm going for.
And then things happen. And then there's an orgy.
Yeah. Exactly. That's
and
what I
that's
want.
what happens. That's what we want in our stories.
Exactly. And then the next one is he falls first or she falls first.
He falls first.
Yes.
Because we
She
love a
falls
good
first
yearning.
is so She falls first is so like cookie cutter, like it's so basic. I want a he falls 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Let him fall for her.
Yes.
Exactly.
Please. And then let them have an orgy. Duh.
Exactly.
It all leads to the
Hello?
orgies.
It all leads to
It's all coming together.
exactly.
Oh my God. What a perfect way to end the podcast, you guys.
I mean, that's really what we need the C-shirt to say. It ends in an orgy. We're all
Yeah,
coming
literally.
together.
There it is.
All of the clips for promoting this episode, it's all going to be orgy related.
It's all gonna be it's just gonna be a big circle.
I feel like that's legit though.
Yes.
Being said, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much to author Adrienne Steele for coming onto the podcast. We had so much fun talking to you. We hope you had a great time on this podcast with us.
This was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much. I had a really great time.
Me too.
Thank you. Yeah, I had
so good.
so much fun. I hate
I
that
laughed
my
so
camera
hard.
stopped working because it was so fun. Thank you so much for taking the time. Before we go, where can our listeners connect with you and find your book online?
So all of my books are on Amazon. They're all on Kindle Unlimited right now.
Mm-hmm.
And my main place to be is actually Instagram. And I invite any readers, good, bad, or ugly, if you want to reach out to me on Instagram and tell me your thoughts and feelings. I can't necessarily say that if you just like dive bomb into my DMs with a bunch of negativity that I'm going to take it to heart, because I probably won't.
Yeah.
I do what I want. But, I am always thrilled to hear from readers who, have read my books and, have questions or have comments or, thoughts that they want to share. I'm always open to it. And I'm on Instagram daily, probably for more than I should be.
Side note, I'm currently on it. So
side
like,
note,
don't you know I'm on
it before we started.
She's like, don't you know I'm on Instagram live right now doing this entire podcast?
I'm live. You should come check it out.
What is your handle so that everybody can find you?
Oh, it's horrible. It is. Apparently there's too many Adriennes out there that are writers, and I'm like, this is whack. But it's Adrienne's Sexy Stories.
Perfect.
A lot of
I love
D's
it.
and S's, but that's what it is.
You know what?
Yep.
It's total orgy vibes. There's a lot of letters going on.
Yeah, right? I mean, everybody's together. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It all blurs into one. It's completely fine.
It's a blurred line and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I love it. And we'll make sure to tag your Instagram in the description below so that way our readers and our listeners can follow you and get connected with you. So we will do that. And if you enjoyed today's episode, to our listeners, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you listen to the podcast. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Official Page to Picture for book to screen updates and behind the scenes content, why chooses, and orgies and
You can also check out our link tree, which is in our bio, for all our episodes, guest signups, and our new merch that we just launched. Maybe we'll have orgy shirt merges. I have no idea. We change them every time. So
listen, and if we do, Henry Cavill will be in there.
It's
So
gonna say
for my Henry
It's
Cavill
like picturing
lovers.
stick figures with a bunch of Henry Cavill faces.
Oh
pasted
my
on them.
God. And me in the middle.
And I support that. I support that.
the
Thank
different
you.
Henry Cavills.
Yeah,
throughout
the different
time.
Henry Cavills, and then me, just a little stick figure me right in the middle. And that's it.
Oh my gosh. Until next time, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.